I was born with a gift. I was born with the gift of having only one hand. Nobody is born average. If I refuse to let circumstances define me, I'm going to define my circumstances. You'll never make an impact unless you're committed to the collision.
Dear young married couple, you're in a busy season of your life. You're probably working and involved in ministry. On top of that, you might even be parents or students. You're maxed, but you really want to stay connected in your marriage.
And that's why we're bringing this podcast to you.
I'm Adam King.
And I'm Carissa King, and we work with busy couples just like you in our counseling office here in Sacramento, California. We also work with couples all over the world through online counseling, and our couples are really just looking for ways to communicate with each other more effectively. Some of them are looking to heal from a breach in trust or find direction in fulfilling the purpose that God has for them.
So come and join us as we have a conversation. We'll talk with therapists, authors, pastors, and other couples who will pour into us, giving us tools to become more intimately connected, get adventurous, and find purpose. Welcome to the Dear Young Married Couple podcast. This episode will be on living above average with Darin Sargent.
And Darin Sargent is an author, a motivational speaker, and also the director of Ministry Central for the UPCI. He has been a pastor. He's also been an influence in our lives from a young age. So we respect him. We're excited to have him on the podcast today.
Yes, and he also has his MA in Christian leadership from Hope International University. So he has a lot of things to give to us today.
Yes, and such a unique perspective too. You'll hear him talk about how he was born with one arm and how it has been pivotal for his development and the way he perceived things. So here we go.
Darin Sargent, so good to have you here, and we've been actually wanting to have you on for a long time.
Yes.
So it's a privilege
and an honor.
Man, it's my honor. This is kind of cool to me because I knew you kids when you were kids. Now you're just bigger kids.
That's true. I do feel like a bigger kid.
Totally.
I do have stories for days about you and your family.
You gotta be careful. Don't tell them all, Adam. Don't tell them all.
Oh.
But, I would definitely say that your family has had an integral role in the development of who I am today. Mm-hmm. And I don't say that lightly.
Yep.
Your dad and your brothers have all made an impact. Mm-hmm. Just do the things that you guys have all done and stood for all your life. And a great example, your whole family.
Yes.
Well, that
we
means
respect
a lot.
you. Yeah.
Well, you guys are awesome.
Aw, yeah, I have so many memories of growing up, going to youth convention, hearing you mentor and guide and preach and teach. And I just have a lot of respect for you. So we're excited to dig in today to this topic. It's something that hits home for everybody. And we want to find out from you, when you think back to the concept of average, where did this start developing in maybe as a child?
Well, it really did start as a child. Before I get too deep into it, I know I've already said, but thank you for the opportunity to be on here. Aww. And you guys are two of the best, in my opinion, the cream of the crop. Mm-hmm. And watching your guys' life and ministry expand and grow has been. I'll stand on the sideline and cheer Adam and Carissa King all day long. I'll go get some pom-poms if I have to. Because you guys you're the real deal and you're helping people, and that's what it's all about.
Well, thank you.
When you talk about average, I've had several dynamic moments in my life that have shaped me. If you don't know who I am, I know they'll probably give you a little update on who I am. I was born with a gift. I was born with the gift of having only one hand, and I wouldn't want it any other way. So if you see me at a conference and you come pray for me to get my arm to grow, I'll probably throat front you.
And you better not call him handicapped.
That's right. Don't make an excuse for me. Don't call me handicapped. Don't call me disabled. But it's been a gift. And the older I get, the more I recognize the importance of why I was born the way I was. But one of the most dynamic moments happened in the space of about 4 years. When I was in the first grade, we lived in Salinas, California. And I remember when I was born, I was inducted into the Shriners Hospital group or whatever. Okay. And they fitted me with a prosthetic as a child. Now, if you know my parents, you've already mentioned my parents, Brother Adam, and I owe so much to my mom and dad. They're just unbelievable people, and how they handled me being their firstborn with only one hand says a lot about my attitude and who I am today and how I handle what many would consider to be a disability. But excuse me, I remember I wore my prosthetic. It was a hook. You've seen those hooks where, I wore it to school one day. Like I said, my parents never forced me to wear it. Shriners fitted me with one, and it was free. So I just every once in a while put it on. It's great. It was great for pinching girls and all that. But I remember wearing it to school, and me and a buddy of mine was on the playground at recess, and I jumped for this ball at the same time he did, one of those playground red rubber playground balls. And my hook accidentally jabbed him in the lip, and blood started coming out. And I'm thinking, this is awesome.
Oh, man.
Wear this more.
Exactly. My teacher didn't see it that way. And I don't remember my first grade teacher's name. I have no idea what it was. I remember coming back to the classroom after the incident and her pulling me outside and sticking her finger in my face and saying, "I never want to see that on your arm again. How dare you wear that? You're going to hurt other people. Don't bring that to school again." And I remember just being first grade heart, just being devastated. I mean, I was just crushed.
Yeah.
And she gave me a note, sealed it, and it had my parents' names on it. And I remember going home and being very concerned about giving it to my parents. I gave it to my dad. And I was kind of on the floor. He was in his chair, and he read the note, folded it up, put it to the side, picked me up, put me on his lap. And he said, "Darin, what that note says about you is not who you are. You are fearfully and wonderfully made. God's got a plan and a purpose for your life." And so this concept from Psalm 139 at a young age began to kind of circulate in my brain. And fast forward 3 years, it's right in the middle of the fourth grade year. We moved from Salinas, California to Twin Falls, Idaho, to a little town outside Twin Falls called Kimberly, Idaho. And I wanted to play football with all the guys at recess. Like I said, it was right in the middle of the school year. So all the little small school, all the friend groups had formed. Here's this one-armed kid, extremely handsome, but here's this one-armed kid that is all of a sudden introduced into the classroom. I wanted to play football. I wanted to show them I could beat them single-handedly, but they wouldn't let me play. and I remember coming into my classroom and collapsing on my desk and bawling like a baby. I'll be honest with you. Girl that sat next to me, her name was Shelley Morrill. I'll never forget. She went up and told my fourth grade teacher. Now I remember his name. His name was Mr. Jenkins. She told my fourth grade teacher what had happened. And all of a sudden I hear him say, class, let's settle down. I want to talk to you for a moment. And he started to call up 5 or 6 students. And he lined them up across the front of the classroom. And he pointed out in each of these students their positive differences. It was brilliant. It was brilliant. And then I heard, I'm still in the back, like, snot running out my nose. My eyes are all puffy. And I'm thinking, what's he doing? And all of a sudden I heard him say, "Darin, would you come here?" And I instantly, fear gripped my heart. I'll never forget it. And I said, here in my brain, I'm thinking, here we go again. I'm going to be singled out. And he called me up there, put his arm around me, and he pointed out what could be considered a disability to some as a positive difference. And it changed my life. I mean, I went into junior high. In junior high, I ran for student body senate. My dad was my campaign manager, and he drew this poster with my sleeve hanging down, said, "Vote for Sarge. He'll be your right-hand man because that's all he can be." And I won. I mean, and I went into high school, and you've all heard my stories. In high school, my arm almost became the school mascot, but something started in this noggin right here about this concept. And I've read that scripture all my life. Psalm 139, verse 14, we are fearfully and wonderfully made. And about probably 7, 8, 9 years ago, I was doing my morning devotion, and I happened to be in that chapter reading it. And the Lord just really, I felt like the Lord spoke to me and said, nobody is born average. And I stopped, and I had my journal, and I was writing. And I said, whoa, say that again, God. Nobody is born average.
Wow.
And what settled on me has evolved over the last few years, but it's this concept that all of us were born with incredible promise and potential. The sky is the limit on what God has created us to be and what God has created us to do. Yet we allow life, we allow pain, we allow hurt, we allow tragedy, we allow failure, we allow divorce, we allow whatever to cause us to kind of slip into this abyss of the average, where we just kind of settle into the status quo and never think that we can push. And we allow these limiting beliefs to start get piled on. This failure causes this belief. This hurt causes this limiting belief. This tragedy causes this. That person and what they said causes this. This, we could go on and on and on. And so it kind of just put something into my spirit that in every youth camp I get to preach, I'm 52. I know I only look whatever, but
you never looked better.
Thank you very much. I'll send you that money later. But it's a concept and a message that I preach every chance I get to preach to young adults and teenagers, because they may not have a physical handicap, but something is limiting them.
Yes,
something is keeping them down. So that's where it kind of came from.
Wow, you know, it's so interesting, but also puts me it gives me perspective. You know, that old memory, the memories that you shared could have easily become defining in the other way.
Exactly.
They could have easily been time-bound, not trauma, but something that would have defined you, that would have been very difficult to get out of your system, would have informed your fears, would have informed these places that actually, been your tar baby, your stuckness. Well, I think, there's something I've lived by my entire life. I refuse to let circumstances define me. I'm going to define my circumstances. And I think they're basically, in my opinion, and I talked about this on a podcast I did this morning, my own podcast, but I talked about there's 4 areas that I feel limiting beliefs originate from. Number one is your past. Right. And you're right, Adam. I could have let that affect me. But I had the wisdom of my parents. I had the wisdom of my 4th grade teacher, who a few years back, I was doing a motivational speech in Nevada, and he drove down, and I took a film crew, and we filmed his perspective of that moment.
That's awesome.
It was incredible. I mean, his perspective of things I never thought about. We did about a 30-minute sit-down interview.
Oh, that's neat. Can people access that interview?
You know what? I think I have it on my YouTube. I'll make sure, but I'll send you the link.
Cool.
So
that would be awesome.
So you can put it on there. Yeah. It's about 20, 30 minutes long, but it's from his perspective and how he felt like and I've developed a whole course that I'm in the middle of right now working on about that. I'm calling it Get a Grip. I'm using 5. Oh, nice. I only have 5 fingers, so I'm using 5 points. But I want to share that. There are things that he did, but I think we allow the past to bring about limiting beliefs in our lives that cause us to remain status quo, to remain average. We allow the present We look at the headlines, we look at everything around us, and the world's a scary place, and we can't push through because so-and-so is saying this about us right now, or they did that, or whatever. And then there's the pretend.
Talk about the pretend. Yeah.
I call the pretend the social media monster. I mean, if you're not careful, you can try to compare yourself. I'm not in competition with Joe Blow from Kokomo, who has 75,000 followers, and every 5 seconds he's posting what he's doing and how awesome it is. Folks, social media it's the highlights if it's anything.
Yep.
And a lot of it is people are just posting the good. They're not showing you the bad stuff. Nobody, there's some people that I'm preaching, but there's some people that get on Facebook and they want to share all their woes and see how bad it is. I ain't got time for that. I love people and I'll pray for people, but dear Lord, it's amazing how bold people get behind a computer. I got to stop.
Discernment, folks.
Yes, exactly. But the pretend is especially with young people and young adults, they're comparing themselves to people's social media life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Come on.
Right.
That's the world of pretend. It's not the real world. And then
but it feels so real.
It
feels so real, especially in that time.
We spend most of our time. I know I'm holding up. There it is. We spend so much time in this world.
Yep.
And it's become a part of us. I mean, the worst thing that iPhone could have ever done was do that screen time monitoring on your phone that you get on Sunday afternoon right before I would preach. It always shows up and shows me what I spent most of my time on. But we do. We're engulfed in this. We're spending way too much time involved in the pretend.
Yeah.
And, there's only really one Facebook, and that's the Bible. And it said, as we look into the mirror of the Word, that's the original Facebook.
That's good.
That's where we really need to be spending our time. Then the final one to me would be people. We let people limit us. We let the lies of people. And I could have let my first grade teacher, whatever her name was, I could have let her limit my life. Yeah. Or I could choose to believe what God says about me.
Yeah.
And what the Word says and what my parents have put into me and what positive mentors put into my life.
We'll be right back to the interview, but first we wanted to share something that we are really excited about.
So, we all have those times where we don't feel super connected to our spouse and we really don't know what conversations to have to get us to that connected place. And then on top of that, we're so busy that we don't prioritize those conversations.
And that's why we created the monthly live date night.
And monthly live date night is every month on a Friday night for 90 minutes, 60 minutes. We focus on a topic that you guys pick. And then 30 minutes, we do a Q&A and it's live where we're all together asking questions and giving answers on topics related to your marriage, your intimacy. And we share tools. We have handouts that we call homework because we want you to be there to listen and to soak in, but we really want you to take action in your marriage too.
So come join us live for the next monthly live date night. Check the link in the show notes for dates and details.
All right, back to the interview.
So good.
Yeah.
I had a question for you.
Yeah.
There's a lot of fathers and mothers listening to this. And just listening to how crucial that wisdom was in that time, in that moment. Your dad had, maybe he just walks around all the time with that sort of wisdom. I might have been kind of taken aback, got frustrated that she would have said that, but I don't know if I would have come back with that wisdom right away without preparing for it. Do you think that was something that he had been mulling over for a while, or
I think, we don't, I think sometimes we don't give enough attention to spiritual gifts that come up on us at times that are necessary. Let me take it back to the day I was born. Okay.
Yeah.
This is really cool. And while I'm telling you this, I kind of feel that little extra Holy Ghost nudge just to go here. My aunt showed up at the hospital after I was born looking for my dad, and she couldn't find him. This was after I was born. This was after he had walked into the room. This was after he had held me. This is after he had assured my mother. My aunt told me this. She goes, I went to find, she calls him Harry. She goes, I went to find Harry, and I didn't know where he was. Went into the lounge or whatever, the cafeteria, the waiting room. Wasn't there. She goes, I found him in the chapel.
Mm.
And he was down in a hospital chapel praying.
Mm.
And he told me later, he said, I had to get a word from God that this boy was going to be all right.
Mm.
And when my aunt went in there, he grabbed my aunt, hugged her, no doubt with tears, and he said, there will be nothing this boy will not be able to do. And I think the wisdom from God started right there. And when presented, and this has happened with my parents, not just my dad, my mom as well, critical junctures in my life where I felt unworthy. I felt, how am I going to preach and hold a mic and point for someone to come up? The whole front 3 rows are going to come up, they have stepped in, and God has given them wisdom and given them words to speak into my life. See, this is the power of influence. And in my opinion, one of the greatest influencing roles in the world is that of a parent.
Yes.
And when they would step in many times and speak a word that would encourage me. And I remember one time I was going through it. I was in college and just struggling with different things and wrestling with stuff. And I remember being in bed one late night, I was just crying out to God. And I heard the door open, and the next thing I know, my mom's got her hand on my head, and she is calling down Jesus upon me and critical moments. And so, you look all the way back from that first grade teacher to my fourth grade teacher to influences in my life to men of God that have played mighty roles, that spoke key words at key moments. Influence, I live by a statement, you'll never make an impact unless you're committed to the collision. And sometimes we got to collide not only with ourselves, but we got to collide with issues and other people's lives. And we're going to make a difference. If we're going to make an impact,
you're going to make a collision.
You're going to make a collision, and things are going to get bent, and things are going to get messed up. But you know what? That's the only way you do. That's the only way you get through it. You got to crash through it sometimes. And there's been a lot of fears that I've had to crash through, a lot of forces that wanted to keep me locked down in average. But you know what? Sure. I may not join the Olympic swim team. I only swim in circles, but I'm going to go out there and I'm going to try.
Yeah.
And, I better stop because I could go on and on.
No, but that's so impactful.
Yeah.
It really, thank you for sharing that. I think parents, it's so very easy to get so bogged down with all the demands of life that we don't stay attuned to what's happening and the real important things that are happening around us. And really, if we don't touch God and get his perspective on things, it's so easy to react. How would they send this stupid letter?
Yeah, I'm calling the school. I'm going to talk to that teacher.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
That's a reaction. How beautiful that he could have reacted internally. He could have he could have done something, but instead he reframed it in how God sees you. And that's what made the impact.
Right.
And that's where our true identity arises from. It doesn't arise from someone's opinion of us.
Right.
It goes back to what I said, people as being the limiting belief. I could, if I wanted to, I've had enough people talk bad about me and my condition. And but one thing this just hit me. One of the things that I loved about people like my mom and dad and different mentors in my life is they never made excuses for me, or they never let me make an excuse.
Ooh, yeah.
Talk about that.
Oh man, I could go down a road here. I'll never forget. It was probably my parents were living in Sacramento. I was in school at Stockton. I came home for the summer between either my sophomore and junior year, must have been, and I was doing construction, which is funny in and of itself.
Right?
If you drive by Gerber and Power Inn, and those houses are no longer standing, it's because I helped build them. I was working for Ken Mabry.
No way.
And my dad was working there. And so Ken gave me a job. He started me out in site. That didn't work. I even tried to do roofing. That didn't work out too good. And so eventually I ended up just driving the forklift. And I almost felt like that was a failure. The only time I ever heard my dad say something to me about the possibility of me not being able to do something was that summer. He pulled me into a house that wasn't finished yet, because I was frustrated because everybody's doing all the things and I was just sitting around on a forklift. And he said, Darin, you were not created to be a forklift driver. You're created to make a difference in this world. Quit.
Yeah.
You're going to be back in school in a few weeks. You're worried about, I was upset about something. That was the only time, because every single time my father, even when I made mistakes, he never made an excuse for me. See, there's the issue I think we have in this society. We got parents trying to cover up kids' mistakes. Yeah. Sometimes you've got to let them face it. There was times in my life where I had to face my mess. My dad didn't cover it up. He says, "Oh, he's a poor one-armed kid. Leave him alone. He can only count to 5 unless he takes his shoes off. Leave him alone." No. It's like, no, you're not getting the pass, buddy.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're not getting the pass. It wasn't that he was mean. They didn't do it mean. They just life. Face it. Deal with
I
it.
think they also, in the absence of excuses, they poured into you the truth, who you are, who you are to become. Even in that instance you gave, he didn't just say, you're not meant to be a forklift driver. He said, you're meant to make a difference. You're going back to school. Like he framed, again, that reframe of like, here's who you are. Here's who you're called to be. Yeah.
You're not going to be doing this 10 years down the road.
Right.
And if you are, I'll take a nail gun and shoot it through your foot. But he saw, I think sometimes we need to look for the possibilities in people instead of the
limitations.
Problems. Exactly. The limitations in people,
or perceived limitations.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You said it right, Chris. It's, he didn't make an excuse, but he replaced it with something.
With truth.
He replaced it with a truth, with a positivity, with, he wasn't trying to just blow smoke in my ear. And, no, he knew I'm his child.
Yep.
He knew what God had planned for me.
That's good. Okay. So kind of to redirect this a bit and challenge you here, I'm sure you have an awesome response. So we've emphasized quite a bit the value of a father's voice or a mentor's voice, your teachers. And I think that is encouraging and probably motivating for those listening who are fathers, mothers, teachers, and want to pour into their children. What if the person who's listening says, I have these limiting beliefs caused by past, present, pretend people, and I want to be able to overcome that even though I don't have those positive voices in my life. Can you give them something to hold on to here? Maybe some practical guidance on, the direction.
Where does it start?
Yeah, the direction they can go here.
For me, I'm just going to talk. I'm a person of faith. You guys know this. You're people of faith, and so faith is a huge factor in my life. Even though I had those voices, even though I had those people speak into my life that were positive, there were times, more times than I want to admit. Well, not that I'd be scared to admit it, but more times than I could probably count. Let me put it that way. Where I had to find a place in God. I think the number one thing that we often overlook is establishing that connection with our Creator. He created us. He knows us. He knows why he created me the way he does more than I know why he created me the way he does. He has a plan that still is unfolding in my life. We've made a major transition. As you guys know, it's a total different thing, but there's a purpose behind it that I'm still seeing some of it. But I had to get alone with God. I had to find that voice that spoke to who I am, because if I don't get that, it goes back to Isaiah's entire experience in the temple after King Uzziah died. He sees the Lord. He gets a revelation of God. We can never get a revelation of ourselves till we get a revelation of God. We've heard preachers preach it. We've talked about it in Sunday school and in books. And, he gets a revelation of God that ended up as a revelation of himself that then resulted in a revelation of the mission. Look at it. Read it in Isaiah 6, I believe it is. In the year that King Uzziah died, I saw the Lord high and lifted up. His train filled the temple. The angels cried holy. He got a revelation of God. But then the next thing we hear is, oh, woe is me, for I'm a man of unclean lips. He got a revelation of himself. Here's the deal. We won't truly see who we are till we see who he is. And after that, after the angel took the coal from off the altar and stuck it on his lips, it was then that he said, once the voice asked the question, whom shall I send? He's like, over here. I'll go.
There's the mission.
There's the mission.
Wow.
And I think until we truly get a revelation of who God desires us to be, we'll wrestle with identity.
So true.
Yep.
No book will give it to you. No seminar will give it to you. It has to be, and I can take you to camp meetings. I can take you to sawdust floors in McCall, Idaho, when I was on my face at a youth camp, and God was digging deep into just pounding it into my spirit. This is who you are. You are a chosen generation. You are a royal priesthood. You are a holy nation. I know the world defines, I fit probably some category of disability someplace, but no, that's not who I am.
That's right.
I'm who God says I am. And that goes all the way back to what David said, I am fearfully and wonderfully made. You knew me in the innermost parts of my mother's womb. You had a plan for me that was established. Woo, I'm preaching now. That was established right then.
Yes.
And yet we allow all this junk to come into our lives, and we get so freaked out and all, it's just nuts.
Yeah. It's just getting that perspective. I love it that you brought up, the year that King Uzziah died, he was in the temple, and there was a shaking that took place in that temple. And it's like, if people don't give enough, they don't go to the place where there is a shaking and be shaken. I just, some people don't allow themselves to open up to God in that way.
The weight of who God is causes change and shaking and disruption in your life.
It does.
Yeah.
Well, and I think you look at it, it's a pattern that God used in every leader that was effective. You look at Joseph, he had to face it. God had to work. We want to put Joseph up here on a pedestal. Joseph apparently had some issues.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because he didn't spend a lot of time in prison. Spent a lot of time in prison. God was working on him. Spent a lot of time in a pit, a lot of time in prison.
So true.
Wow. This has been so rich.
Yeah. I love it. And I think this is, even though it's there is practical, there are principle here. These principles are real.
Yes.
It's so funny. Like you just look at enough people that are successful, that are doing things, and this is what they're saying. So maybe that's a good idea, to get alone with God and to realize your identity.
Yes.
And then what you think is such a huge deal and so limiting really becomes something that shapes you.
We'll be right back to the interview, but I wanted to take a moment and share with you about my favorite brand for pregnant and nursing mamas. You've probably heard me talk about them over the last few episodes, but it's called KINDRED BRAVELY. KINDRED BRAVELY was my go-to brand while I was pregnant and nursing, and they also have stuff for non-pregnant and nursing mamas too. The sweater that I absolutely love and I'm actually wearing while we record this episode is called the Chloe Chunky Cardigan sweater, and I have it in the oat color. It's a perfect addition to many fall outfits. I find myself picking it up most days and throwing it on with whatever I'm wearing. And I think you would love it too. It's super comfy. I also love all their bamboo stuff, their pajamas, their dresses for nursing mamas. Go check it out. You can go to kindredbravely.com, and you can also use our code DYMC20 for 20% off your purchase, and some exclusions apply.
And I think there's something else, and I deal with this in my course, Nobody is Born Average. We've got to eliminate some distractions. We've got to eliminate some voices that we allow to speak into our lives. You know, leadership demands resistance. That's what makes a leader. And yet we don't like the resistance, and we want the easy path. And so we tend to go with the flow and listen to things that are not biblically accurate. And we let voices of our peers, we let voices of our past, we let voices of the present culture kind of define us when God says no. And, you know, we can cause all of that to get us to just keep going down till we're at the bottom and we're just existing. God didn't call you to exist.
No.
That's right.
God called you to excel.
Amen.
Calls you to do something.
And so you would say, turn off your stinking phone and
turn off your phone, turn off all the media that's just dragging you down. Stop the noise. Stop it.
How do you practically do that? Like you're a creator, you're always studying, and I know how do you practically get quiet?
Well, for me, this is just Darin Sargent. I am an early riser. Okay. I get up before the devils do.
That's early.
Yeah, it's pretty early. They're done partying about the time I get up. I've always been this way since I was a teenager. My internal clock starts off at 4:30 in the morning. Okay. I don't usually need an alarm clock. I just get up. I don't always get out of bed at 4:30, but I love my morning time. I love to get alone with God. I'm a big journal guy. I like to write. I try to read and write before I check anything on my phone.
That's good.
How valuable, I'm sorry, I'm like curious.
Go ahead.
How valuable do you think that journaling is to your growth as an individual?
Oh, to me, it's huge. Much to the chagrin of my wife, I have stacks and stacks and stacks of journals. I mean, I got more journals than and I'm a sucker for a new journal. It's something about breaking, I have one right here in front of me. This is I just started, I'm a big proponent now of bullet journaling. I just started it this year and I am in love with it. I've tried every system out there and this works for me. But for me, I'm able to take thought. I think something happens when we take thought, and now I'm becoming a philosopher here, but we take thought and we put it down onto paper with pen. Now, sometimes I do type, journal in. I have, in my computer, but I like the tactical. It just helps me process.
And that's how you grew up. Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. And, some people, it's easier for them to sit down in front of a keyboard or do it on their phone or whatever works. I don't care. Just get it out. But for me, one of the things that I've started doing recently is doing a daily review at the end of my day. Just writing down, okay, here's what happened today. Like tonight, I'll write about Adam and Carissa King. I'll write about you guys, and I'll ask myself the question: why in the world did they have me on there? No, just kidding. But I'll process it.
Yeah,
I had some things. I'm currently while we're recording this, quarantined here at home.
Yeah.
So I was, had to do my staff meeting for work from home today. But I'll write about that. I'll just write about things that came up. I've taken notes while I'm in a meetings like that. I wrote,
beautiful.
Scriptures I read this morning, things that I thought, they just come to me. I write it down because it helps me just process.
Well, yeah, you're manifesting something that would otherwise feel a bit intangible. And also it puts you into a routine so that you're training your brain to look for the useful things, the things that you want to reflect on later, the stories.
I came across, there's a really good book called Storyworthy that I think is fabulous. And he has a TED Talk. I'm trying to remember the TED Talk name. I think it's called A Story for Life. And he talks about that whole process at the end of the day to go through the day. And he says, your days and weeks and years are flying by because you don't remember them.
Exactly.
He said, if you capture your days, your life goes much more slowly and you can actually enjoy it to a more full extent.
Wow. I just wrote that down, Storyworthy. For everybody listening in podcast land, the Adam King just dropped a very notable note. Go get Storyworthy. I wish I would have wrote it because I'd just make $1 million right now.
Okay, so
that's how many people listen to your podcast.
Oh yeah.
Speaking of resources, though, we've written down. You're going to give us that YouTube link for the interview with Mr. Jenkins, your fourth grade teacher. You've recommended bullet journaling, which we recommend as well. We'll put Storyworthy in the linked resources. Talk to us about your course. About
I am so excited.
Nobody's Born Average.
About Nobody's Born Average.
Yes.
You know where it was born from. So what I did is I took this word average and I thought, okay, there's got to be something that makes us average. And I noticed that there were 7 letters to average. So I came up with 7 things that cause us to be average. I'll give you a few of them. First one is apathy. Apathy will cause you to be average. Just an apathetic attitude, an apathetic spirit, whatever. The second thing was voices. Voices will cause you to be average. The third thing is the E. That's excuses. And then the R is relationship. Show me your friends. I'll show you your future. And I could go on and on. The A, the next A is assumptions, and then giants of fear and failure. And I better stop. But I don't want to leave people there in the course. I don't want to leave them there. I want them to go from average to awesome. And guess how many letters awesome has? I'm brilliant.
7.
I'm telling you. Just, who comes up with stuff like this? Nobody. Nobody like me. Right.
Thing is, you gotta have one arm, and you also have to write every single morning.
That's right. That's right. You just got to do it.
That's how you get awesome.
You can do this too. I'm not a trained professional. Do not try this at home. No. But awesome has 7 letters. So we're going to talk how to turn average into awesome.
Nice.
And that's what the course is about. It's $99. I even make it easier for people. You can spread it out in a 3-month payment of $33 just to make it easy for everybody. Just quit drinking Starbucks for 4 days and you can afford the course.
Seriously, $33. Everybody can afford that.
For 3 months, And then they get lifetime access, or how long do they get access?
Lifetime access to it. They get a workbook with it. They get a copy of my book, The Rule of Thumb, where I talk about, it's an ebook I wrote. You get that for free. And there's more things coming down the road.
Love it.
That will be involved in that course. So
where can they get the course itself?
Go to nobodyisbornaverage.com.
Okay.
Nobodyisbornaverage.com.
Yeah.
It'll soon be my website, darinsargent.com will soon be finalized. I'm hoping we'll be able to launch my new website this week, which has all my courses on it.
Okay. We'll link that in the show notes too then.
Podcast and all that stuff.
So cool. And where can they find you on the in podcast land?
Almost any podcast place you listen, the Darin Sargent Show is available. We are now into 86, 87. I think we're nearing 90 episodes. So
awesome.
Wow. That is so cool.
Yeah.
All right. We will link all of that for sure.
Okay.
Good.
Yeah, the Darin Sargent Show. I didn't know what else to call it, so I just called it the Darin Sargent Show.
Well, it's original and awesome.
Unique, brother.
There we go.
Well, this is incredible. We like to close our podcasts by asking each of our interviewees the same question. And that is, if you were to rewind back to the first couple years of your marriage and then fill in the blank, dear young married couple, what would you say?
Dear young married couple, don't get in a rush. You're not going to have what mom and dad has 2 years into your marriage. Don't get into a rush and compare yourself with other people. Be you. Enjoy the journey. Understand that God has got good things for you and your spouse that is yours. It's your journey. It's nobody else's. So don't get in a rush. Don't be so fast to try to get, well, we need to have this before we can do this. Just enjoy the journey. Enjoy it before kids come along. Enjoy all of that. Just enjoy the journey.
Amen.
Don't rush. So
awesome. So good.
Yeah.
Love it.
Thank you so much, Brother Sargent.
Always an honor. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying thank you guys. This was a treat for me. You guys are amazing people.
Aww.
Well, we love you so much. And seriously, people, go and check this course out.
Yes, absolutely.
I know there's going to be so much wisdom. Serious. Because
I need to afford the surgery to reattach my arm. Hurry.
Oh, no. The jokes keep coming out.
If people could just invest in themselves, it's amazing what could happen.
Yes.
Well, there's some things we'll never know unless we're willing to grow.
It's so true.
And I think sometimes we don't think we need to we get to a place where we know everything. I'm not anywhere near where I need to be.
Amen.
I mean, I still don't even agree with half the stuff I do. So I've got a long way to go.
I could concur. Half of me doesn't like that.
Yeah. There's some things we will never know unless we're willing to grow. So be committed to growth. And I think we got an opportunity to really make a difference in our world. Let's do it. Let's do it.
Amen.
We're going to join you.
You guys are doing it. You guys are doing it. I love it.
You too.
We love you. We appreciate you.
Love you guys.
All right, friends. We really hope that you got a ton out of today's conversation. And if you want help, if you want personal guidance with individual counseling or couples counseling, or even help with you as a couple reaching the goals you have, just reach out. Give us a call at 916-678-1797 or shoot us an email at hello@dearyoungmarriedcouple.com.
No matter where you are in the world or in your marriage, we can set up a counseling session with you and we can work toward progress. We also post marriage advice regularly on our Instagram, which is @dearyoungmarriedcouple, and we'd love for you to join us in conversation there. All right, see you next week.